There is a post made by a blog called The 10th Amendment, which interestingly makes the case that socialists should support Ron Paul for president. Of course, one's initial reaction to such a statement would be either utter dismay or rage. In the post, the author lays down an argument that Ron Paul as president would relegate the responsibility of government functions to state-level control. He believes that by doing this, it would make it possible to have a socialist government option because a state could choose to do so. He says it would allow 50 different political options to choose from based on the idea that each state would then choose how things would be, meaning the door would be supposedly open for socialists to build their own type of government. Despite this belief, the idea is based on several libertarian fallacies. Whether you prefer socialism or laissez-faire capitalism, there would be most likely an option that fits the political environment in which you would like to live. This claim is predicated on the idea that capitalism is supposedly freedom. Now, as Lenin said about capitalist freedom, freedom for whom? To do what? It's an assumption that at least one state will automatically become socialist. That's not what he is outright saying. However, he is implying it by saying there would most likely be an option. This implying comes from the typical lack of understanding that libertarians have, believing that all government is socialist. Well, this is not true. We have a capitalist government, whether in Canada or the United States. The state is the apparatus by which the capitalists protect their private property. The state is funded by the public, but controlled by the capitalist class. They pay for the representatives to run for office and provide them with the necessary incentives to do their bidding. This is capitalism, whereas libertarians are in denial. The breaking down of the federal government into small state governments would produce no difference. The state itself would be less powerful and have less access to resources, but that would not alter how the state functions. It would not eliminate business from being the ones who fund politicians. It would not eliminate the profit motive behind their corruption. Nothing in its essence of what makes the system what it is would actually change. A negative would be that the government would have less resources to carry out what people wanted it to do, like national defense and security. We would have 50 different departments of Homeland Security with 50 different methods of doing things that would eventually and would always conflict. Resources for national defense would be more complicated as different states would be fighting over what equipment should be purchased from who. Just forming an actual national defense military strategy would be next to impossible. Each state alone would think that they're the most important and needed to be defended. Not to mention they would each have their own idea of what that would be. Not to mention all the other problems that would arise. That's why the military has a central command structure, and why militaries should have them. His next argument, which is against big government, implies that big government can't get things done because of people with different political motives. As an example of this, he points to the so-called Obamacare controversy as an example. Look at Obamacare and the controversy that it's caused. It's taking forever to set the plan in motion because people from different parts of the country view the issue differently. I always use Massachusetts and Mississippi as examples. People in Massachusetts aren't going to agree with the political motives of people in Mississippi and vice versa. Why should either state be forced to abide by the political views of the other? Here he continues the fallacy that people are fighting over what healthcare means. Again, it is the intrusion of capitalism and the profit motive of insurance companies and medical suppliers who are against Obamacare. Now at this moment, I'm not going to go into what a fraud Obamacare is. Universal healthcare is popular, especially among the 50 million Americans who are without healthcare. The drive against healthcare reform is completely at the behest of corporations trying to protect their profits. That's all it is. We know this for a fact, given the insanity of some of their arguments. Of course, there are some people who genuinely believe that universal healthcare is the most evil thing that has ever existed, and it's eugenics and all this other garbage, which completely fails to explain why every other first world and some third world nations have better health than Americans, even though they have universal healthcare systems. Conservatives for Patients' Rights is a prime example of business interfering with the will of the people and carrying out that function. The group is a total fraud. It's funded by corporate lobby groups, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical companies. Their website told people to literally yell 1930s Germany at town hall meetings to invoke the fear of the Nazis. Unfortunately, the website is now gone and now redirects to some unrelated blog. The move for healthcare reform was stopped by businesses defending their profits, not political motives of people in different states. I'm not implying in any way that all disagreements would disappear under socialism, although people in the comment section will claim that I did. I'm saying that 90% of what interferes with the will of the people will be eliminated. What we will have then is an actual debate on what we want. This post is intended to get socialists to vote for a libertarian candidate based on libertarian arguments. It's an ineffective means of changing a socialist's mind. If libertarians already acknowledge that the system is controlled by big business, and both parties are owned by big business, how is Ron Paul supposed to change anything? It is a contradiction in itself. Him bringing any change at all is about as believable as Obama bringing any change. The poor got poorer while the rich got richer under his leadership, even though that was what supposedly Obama promised to change. Ron Paul is being touted as a candidate of change. I've heard that one before.